Hello, everyone, and welcome to QnC After Dark. We are after, what is this, episode 14 of Swords and Sages?
Wow.
And we have just gotten them out of the Shadowfell, but oh, at what cost?
Yeah. I don't know, $20?
Yeah, my mom wants me to take her out for a nice lunch, and then we'll be even.
$20 is not a nice lunch most places.
Look, the economy in hell is very shifty.
That's
It's
fair.
20 souls.
If your,
Yeah.
if your mother was not so fond of the Cheesecake Factory.
I think the last time my mother went to a cheesecake factory was explicitly to burn it to the ground.
So you were saying something about backstory?
Yes.
Oh, right. Well, so you see, I think the challenge with backstory, and the way, in my opinion, let's just preface with that.
Your mileage may vary.
In my opinion, backstory is best served when it is not like, here's 7 pages about me. Instead, it's thing you said becomes part of my backstory, and that leads me to that. And so, there's nowhere is there anything written down about anything about Les's past. I just sort of, when you asked that question, I was like, oh, here's where I'm going, and that fed into what she's doing, and that sort of thing. And I think the challenge with many people, especially when they're first getting started in D&D, is they're like, I have this amazing story, and you're all going to experience it. And that is, in my opinion, the wrong way to approach backstory because it's intractable. Like I got to get my stuff in, as opposed to your thing leads to my thing, and suddenly we're connected. Instead of my story, which I never knew you, so it's not in here. You're not in here, and so it's not like, it's not, I'm going to shoehorn you into this. Instead, it's, oh, okay, you brought that out in me, and so now that's the connection between us. And I think, to me, that's a much more organic way to get to the same place. But I know some people like to have
It probably depends on the player. I mean, the actors at the table will probably tell you that we write our backstories.
Except for this one for me.
Yeah, but we write our backstories not for the purpose of creating a story in the game, but just to know how our characters would react in any given situation.
Yeah.
So probably, but
Does it change? Like what you write down, do you change it based on what happens?
I don't think, because like for me, it's very much like it's the pre-work before a play. So like there's what happens in the play, but then there's all that shit on the back end that no one ever gets to see, and you get to make up all of that stuff, and then that informs essentially what we do here.
Well, when I developed this one, I said I am intentionally leaving this blank so that we can, because I think it's a potential to serve the story.
Yeah.
So for this game, yes, like I intentionally leave things vague or blank because I think it could play into the story, which obviously that's a little different than working on a play.
I mean, that's sort of the same. That's a more structured version of what I'm doing, I think. Because
you just leave everything blank.
and I mean, I think you can have different, and it might even be good to have different kind of approaches in the same game, because like, if somebody's got something, that gives the GM something to work with right away, and then I can yes and it by saying like, oh, and here's how that's going to feed into my story, and that sort of thing. I think the challenge becomes when your backstory is a citadel that none may enter.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the tricky part with Wu Ya was like starting off, I didn't write anything. So he was kind of blank slatey. And then I started to shift based on like what I was seeing around the table. And then I started to influence it more with actual thoughts compared to, let's say, Sen, which had, I think, 14 pages of just like pure writing. But it wasn't like day 1, this is what happened. Day 2, this is what... It was like very particular, like these are the key moments in her life before we actually start the story. So that way it's like immediately coming in, it's just like she already has thoughts. She already has motivations and goals to be moving towards. And obviously, like, because of this freeform story situation that we're doing, like, the goal is still the same, but how we get there will shift and turn and be influenced by those that are around us.
And I think to your point, that game situation is very different than this one because you're coming into a structured mythology that you kind of have to exist within, as opposed to here, we're all kind of building the stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of structure because it's set in Faerun, and I like the mythology of Faerun. But I'm certainly willing to delve deeper into things that you guys are actually interested in and ignore the things that you're not.
Well, and I do think the balance is really interesting because I came in with a lot of loosely held backstory for Sabachthani, partly because we set up early on this idea that she's like 350 years old and functionally immortal. And so it's like, why is a 350-year-old very wealthy tiefling a level 1 adventurer? And so where did that come from? And it's actually been an interesting interplay of there's a lot of stuff from her past and her family that is sort of like set up, and then the specifics of it get developed as we go. The incident that happened with my mother, we knew something was going to happen, that Mom was going to pull me out. We had figured that out because we knew I needed to miss a night. We figured out what that was like a week ago, and it was based on things that had happened in the campaign where we decided this makes sense for why Mother would have called and what happened, and here's potential repercussions that were being dealt with. Which has also been really interesting because I came in with a lot of backstory. Ezra came in with far less backstory. And as we've established, we did very little coordinating on it. And so it's actually been very fun building on the shared mythology of the Morovers together in these two respective ways and letting it ping pong off.
Well, and that's something
what we
I've really
say.
enjoyed because you have given me so much stuff to just yes and to like figure out weird ways to twist what you're doing into you know, and to make it in to make me interesting in that is the way I want to phrase that. And I think it's a good example of the byplay of sort of two different styles in that regard.
Well, and I like the balance that it does bring because then I can play the straight man very easily at a table, and so getting the curveballs from what your character's doing like is very fun to riff off of. And then also I feel like it's given us all some very good moments in those moments of when the silliness gives way to seriousness. Like we asking Lester like a truly serious question about his past and cutting through the exterior and things like that. So that's been very fun.
I do have to figure out the balance of like the sadness with, I don't want it to be like regret, you know, because Les doesn't regret any of his choices, but you can still be sad about the choice you made and not regret it. And I'm probably not actor enough to appropriately convey that, so I have to like figure out some stuff around that. But I don't know. I've sort of been toying with the idea. Like if you listen to the podcast, my little voice stinger was actually the first hint of that. When we were like, because Tiana's like, just do a sentence that'll tell you about the character, and I was like, I have nothing about the character. I don't know what to do. And so
I actually heard that for the first time today because I often don't listen to the intros or I'll be skipping through to find further. And I was like, oh, we all dropped some interesting sort of hints at where we were going. Nothing too set in stone, but like there's some interesting stuff in the.
I forget what I even said.
I stabbed chairs.
No, we haven't gotten there
He
yet.
would not have known.
That was a character
beforehand.
development.
Yeah.
The moment of this episode was how excited you got to stab that book. That was the best. That was
But I didn't even get a stab in.
That was.
I'm ready.
Oh, that was awesome.
But yeah, like to that, I mean, I guess for me, I find that improving at times can be really tricky. So like I commend you and like I admire the ability to just like take a thought and just like be like, eh, throw it out there, and it happens. For me, I'm like, what?
Yeah, but ask me if I remember any of it tomorrow.
Which is also a thing, is like, how much do you remember? How much do you like weave back in so that way it maintains consistency across? Because like, as you do yes and. So it's like, as I'm writing it down, it's like, I will bring it back to you so it reminds you.
Thank goodness.
But like, how do you maintain that? As we bring back
No.
New Jersey,
Hey,
no,
hey.
hey.
Put that back. Put that back.
Bring the episode.
Hey, we can afford more in the after show, okay?
That's true. If you keep giving us more bits, we'll
Patreons,
do
yeah.
more.
That's right.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because I notoriously steel trap on those kinds of moments, and sometimes I worry about bringing them back around because I don't want to put. Like, I think Sabachthani and Wuya is a really interesting example because, like, she's filing away all the... If you guys haven't figured out, Sabachthani's currency is secrets. So, like, she files away all these little drops and these little hints that she picks up on, but I always have that moment as a player where I'm like, I don't want to bring up something from, like, 8 episodes ago and blindside another player who's like,
Do
oh, that was
it!
a throwaway thing.
Always reincorporate. Reincorporation is always good.
Yeah. Well, and also I think we're all at the table where we know that sort of thing is going to happen, and so
Not him.
if it gets he's not even here. That's how little he knows about what's going to happen. I love that for him. But
This is the best he's ever done.
yeah, it's amazing.
This
But
is really
I
great,
think bringing it back around and giving people maybe that opportunity to go, oh yeah, that was a thing I brought up, and then improv off of that and let that grow isn't the worst thing.
No, I think
Right.
it's. I think anything that's thrown out there should be brought back because at a certain point, we're who knows how long we're going to keep doing this in the abstract, but we're closer to the end of this arc than we are to the beginning.
It's true.
And so now it's time to stop creating new loose ends and start pruning old loose ends. And that's always a hard thing to figure, especially with improv. Is like, when have we crested the hill and now we need to start dealing with the consequences and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think we've got some of this stuff might never come out, and some of it might come out
Yeah.
3 levels from now or something like that.
Oh yeah.
If we're still playing D&D.
There's there's lots of stuff that I think we'll be mining for a while. We're going to resolve the immediate problem of hopefully getting out of this chalet unscathed, but I'm sure there's going to be repercussions for everybody from what happened in the Shadowfell that are going to chase us for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So
That was a fun episode.
It was. I did not expect you to call on your mother to close that.
I was not planning. So Sabachthani has a ring of sending. Or a ring of spell story, which is a very powerful item for her to have at this level. And the two things
Deal with it.
And the 2 things I requested. Well, this is the little peek behind the curtain for the patrons. The things I requested, because you can store up to 5 levels of spells. So mechanically, I asked for sending, which is a 3rd level spell, and shatter, which is a 2nd level spell. And the intention of having sending was always with the intention that if she got in bad enough trouble, she could call on one of her family members to get help. And this was why I was doing like secret rolls for myself in the box, was seeing like how worried she was about the situation and about what was happening to Wuya in the Shadowfell. And so it's like, nope, we've got ravens. Because the other thing too is like, she doesn't know if the ravens are coming for her or for him.
And neither option's good.
And neither of those situations is a good situation.
And you've been consistent, actually, because I remember when we were still in Candlekeep and we heard the ravens, and you were already like, we got to go. Like, there's, for whatever reason, these ravens are really, really have you on edge. And so keep it, that this is just sort of keeping that going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so rarely the one who gets to make the very stupid decision, so I just rolled with it.
Well, but I mean, is it stupid? Was it what you needed to do in that moment? Would the ravens have followed you?
It wasn't
Yes.
stupid for protecting the party. It was very stupid for the personal repercussions it's going to have for Sabachthani. But she also knew that when she decided to do it.
I'm also interested to see, you, that's my patron that you did that to, so.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, the Moreovers are going to have a conversation about where Sabachthani was and what happened.
A conversation.
At some point.
Yes, that's going to be interesting. Well, I don't think Thomas.
He's not coming back.
Thomas isn't coming
He's
back.
abandoned us
Yeah.
forever.
But this has been a really interesting discussion because I think I understand now more about your position on backstory, because you're always on the backstory is bullshit wagon, and I didn't understand the nuance.
Amy
of it.
is right.
I didn't understand the nuance of it until literally tonight, actually. I've just sort of been like, oh, it's Ezra. Old man shakes fist at clouds.
which could be a backstory, but it's a loose one that you can work around.
I can make that work.
But now I understand it a lot more. So thank you for going into that.
Really, it's just letting everybody else do the work.
Fair.
I mean, ultimate power move there. So thank you all so much, patrons, for helping support this channel, helping us tell these fantastic stories around the table, have these fantastic discussions, and we really appreciate you. So thank you so much, and we will see you all next week.
Goodbye, Patreon friends.